So, Mr. Midzi, I like your style on LinkedIn, the way you talk about, people, for example, you can say, when I met so and so, she was like this, and then, you mention a lot of the developments that have happened over the years. I just love that.
No, thank you.
Yes.
So, I think it's just, for me, it's just sharing my stories, I think.
It's amazing, So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to this conversation with Mr. Kudzai Midzi. He is the managing consultant of KFM Consultants and trustee of Tugwi Trust. With over 25 years audit and financial management experience, gained mainly working with NGOs and small businesses. Kudzai is passionate about assisting organizations use their resources more effectively for the benefit of the societies around them. He is also actively involved in providing platforms where children can obtain the chance to pursue their dreams and reach their full potential. So have I read, Mr. Midzi. Would you like to tell us? I know people like to hear it from the horse's mouth. Who is Kudzai?
All right, thank you. I think in your brief introduction there, you really summed me up. I'm just someone, I think, who's grateful for the many blessings that have been bestowed on me, and someone who's really enjoying this journey, this life that I'm living. I've been lucky enough to be able to find my passion and to work in it. Most treasured to me, of course, would be family. So I'm a father of 3. I've got a young son, Takunda, who's single and ready to mingle. I've got 2 young daughters. 2 young daughters, a teen and a preteen, still focusing on school for them. I'm a divorcee, but yeah, just looking forward to getting married again soon and maybe having a couple more children. My passion really is, I think, seeing transformation. So transformation either at an individual level for the students that we work with, or at an organizational level for the work we do as KFM. And just a bit of history of where that all started. My vision was always to be a lawyer. Dr. Wilbert, I'll take a bit of time. I hope you don't mind me going on about myself. No problem at all. So I always thought I was going to be a lawyer. Didn't get enough points for university to be able to do the law I wanted to do. Ended up doing my articles of clerkship with an accounting firm. And I think it was really there that I then discovered what it was I really loved doing. And that was, I think for me, when we were auditing NGOs, I found that they were doing amazing work in the communities. And I then found a niche market for myself, because at that time, there was really no one focusing on assisting these organizations improve their financial systems. So I fell in love with that, and that's what I was determined to do. So I worked a bit, UN agencies, international NGOs, and then set up the company KFM Consultants. So we've been working as KFM Consultants since 2004, and we work with all sorts of NGOs. We work with funders, the UN agencies, we work with small grassroots organizations out in communities. We've been lucky enough through our work to also travel through the continent. So I've come to love Africa. I've come to love all the unique things about the different countries we go to. And really, we continue to work with organizations in that sphere. I then also discovered, I think my father was involved with Tugwi Trust initially. He was helping students out in Chivi in Masvingo. And then on retirement, he then asked me to help him out. So I basically took that over with my brother, Ranga, with the founding trustees. My sister, Rumbi, is also involved. Yeah, and since 2005, we've been running Tugwi Trust, which then just works with children. We're just trying to help children to, first of all, dream big, not to hide their dreams. So we encourage them to talk about their dreams. We encourage them to dream about what it is they want to do. And then we also want to try and help them achieve those dreams. So whether it's through paying of school fees, whether it's exposing them to different paths they can take, assisting with things like food packs or whatever it is that they need. We then work with children, primarily in Chiwi, but also we work in other areas in Zimbabwe as well, helping the children. So that's me in a nutshell. That's what I'm involved with, and that really takes up most of my time. It's not work for me. I think I almost see it like I'm not working every day, but that's what I'll be doing on a daily basis.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. So you have been involved in helping small, medium, and micro enterprises, and at the same time, helping NGOs as well in terms of financial management. And believe you me, the issues of financial management are very difficult. I think it's because most people do not learn about money at home when they are growing up. These issues are discussed in the homes of the rich. And for most of us with our wonderful backgrounds, talking about money is not acceptable. So, and then at school also, we are not taught about money. So it becomes a real challenge. So my passion is to empower leaders and to empower entrepreneurs. And I have been longing to have a person like you to talk about financial management. I did a research in 2015 where I did a survey with some questionnaires to about 100 SMMEs in the manufacturing sector in Botswana. And I also interviewed 3 different commercial bank managers. And what came out of that was very touching, because entrepreneurs were actually saying, you know what, we rarely keep records. 50% of the entrepreneurs said, we don't even keep records. Some of them, they say they keep the records, but they don't understand them. And then, of course, the bank managers who deal with entrepreneurs were also saying, you know what, the reason why we don't normally fund SMMEs is because many of them are not credit worthy and many of them don't keep records. So this is a very serious matter, Mr. Midzi, and I'm so glad to have you. What do you have to say? I know there's a lot to say. You can't finish all of it. But what comes first to your mind?
Well, I think what you've just said is really true. And I always use the story of my mother. So my mother makes peanut butter at home. And she would make so much peanut butter and she'd say, business is so good. I'm selling to everyone. Oh, I can't meet demand. But once in a while, you see, she's always asking for money can I have money to buy bottles? Can I have money to buy peanuts? And then you ask, but if business is so good, you know, why aren't you able to stock up? And then the simple question is, are you making money? The answer will always be yes, because money is flowing in. Are you making a profit? And that was, I think, for her, something she had never bothered to think about.
Right.
So we spoke a bit and helped her set up the records, helped her do a bit of reporting. And immediately we could see that she was selling her peanut butter at a loss. You know, so right. She then realized that, oh, okay, so maybe this is why I'm not growing as much as I need to. But I think that ability to have records, to report and to analyze your reports is lacking in a lot of our small to medium enterprises. And a lot of them will then mix personal funds with their own funds, so they don't really keep track of what's business and what's not business. And I think that really stifles the growth. So you find that, you know, we end up being small for all the time that we're economically active. So I think it's a key thing that we need to do. And as you rightly said, we need to be teaching this to our children so that they get it straight from the onset. One of the first things I taught my girls was how to keep a cash book. So you don't get pocket money until you account for the last amount that you received. And at 4 or 5, they're already maintaining their small cash book. So, and I can see it now, 5, 6 years later, you start to see they're more aware of money. They are more aware. Like me, they start keeping receipts and wanting to check receipts before making payments. So you can see an awareness around money that I think is very important And then if children take up as they grow, they'll also take into the business world. Whatever it is that they do, there's still a need, I think, to understand money. So yes, very key subject. And for me, the trick is to try and simplify it as much as possible, because I think everyone normally, when they just hear finance, then draw back and become scared. But it's really taking the fear out of finance. That for me is one of the biggest challenges that I have.
Wow. That's amazing. I like the fact that you are telling us how, you have helped your children actually, to be able to manage money from such an early age. Your children are so privileged. And
I don't know if they think so.
I think they may not understand it now, but I can assure you it's such a privilege, because the issues of money are a big problem. Being involved in marriage coaching as well, my wife and I do business coaching and marriage coaching. So you realize that most marriages are actually disturbed by the issues of money as well. And then you find many businesses, not only business, even individuals, they are affected negatively due to the inability to have a good relationship with money, if I were to say. Somebody said the black man does not have a good relationship with money. You see, without blaming anybody or trying to sound sarcastic, there are other topics that we will be discussing, or you post on Facebook and you have people enjoying and sharing and getting excited. But when you say to people, we shall be discussing financial management, you will think that people will get excited. Woo, let's go and learn about money. No. Many people are not interested to learn about money. I have written 3 books on money and 1 on relationships. Of course, I'm grateful that a lot of people have been buying the books, but there are some people that I would think need the book. Not like want, but they need it. They must read it. But guess what? They will tell you, I don't read. Reading is not for me. What do they want? Can you borrow me? Can you lend some money to me? Please, can you give me money? So our people, particularly in Africa, need to learn to, to desire to know more about money management. So as individuals, if we don't value financial literacy, then even our enterprises, even our NGOs cannot succeed. We will always be broke. And the truth be told, Mr. Midzi, even our governments, majority of them, they don't understand money management. That's why we are always in crisis. Anyway, I don't want to take much of your time there. How can firms cope with the crisis in terms of financial management? We are in the COVID-19 right now. What advice do you have for firms, whether they are NGOs or they are SMMEs? What should they be doing right now to cope?
I think we've all just been hit by something we were not anticipating. 2020 started off very well for many organizations, and then just took a nosedive with the pandemic that is there. And really the issues around money were key in order to ensure that organizations did not go under. But I think before you even look at financial management, it's important for whether you're an NGO or a corporate to, I think, first of all, look after your staff. I think it's key to then just make sure that your staff is safe, look at issues of their wellness, see how a lot of people working from home, is that working well for them? Do you need to constantly meet with them, whether it's on Zoom like we're doing or on WhatsApp groups? Because I think it's important for you to be able to continue functioning. Key is your staff. So just look after your staff. If someone is infected, how can you assist them? How can you assist with testing and getting PPE? So I think that's really key. And it also has an impact on your finances eventually. But also there's a need, I think, to be flexible. We're being called upon to look at our business models, how we're operating. And for me, while I think the main aim is to survive this, we mustn't also forget that there are opportunities that come in crisis. So there's always opportunities that maybe might come your way. I think it's important to be flexible enough to put measures to survive, but when you see something that you can go after that will lead to growth, then go for it. Do not wait. I think the time to grab or act is always now. So look out for those opportunities and take advantage of them. But also to innovate and find new ways of doing things. I think it's also key for any organizations to be able to master what they do. I think in such crises, we tend to go to the best in whatever they do. I think it's not the time for general people who then maybe are wishy-washy about what they do. So for me, it's important to then make sure you are taking time to master your craft. Whether you're an NGO, whether you're a corporate, make sure you're good at what you do, because then you'll find people coming to you. There are some people that were prepared in terms of putting money aside. So you'll find that there are organizations that had reserves. So in instances where you have reserves, I think this is that rainy day that people were scared might come. It's important to then just make sure you can tap into those reserves in order to survive. Without reserves, I think it means we are having to tighten our belts. And key for all organizations will be the issue of liquidity. How can you make sure you have money that enables you to function? So you need to start doing just cash flow projections as organizations, even as individuals at your homes. How much money do you have in the bank? What are your needs going to be for the next, I think if you look at the next 6 months, take a look at your cash expectations. Will you have enough money to be able to pay off these commitments that you have? If you're a corporate, I think it's important to then start looking at debtors. Can you call upon debtors to be able to get your money? People that owe you money, can they pay up quickly? People that you owe money, you might be able to negotiate terms as well that are there. If you're an NGO, it's time to talk to your funding partners. Maybe they're able to give you some sort of advance on your grants that you have. Maybe they're also able to then also just let you adjust your budget so that you can incorporate money that's needed under this COVID pandemic. But we all need to cut down on essential costs. So it's important to then start looking at your costs. What is it that you can do without? Cut on what you can. There's some commitments you're not able to cut on, but whatever you can, cut down on it. Avoid maybe coming into long-term commitments that will tie you down financially as well. So you need to be able to look at that as well. If you're keeping stock, take a look at your stock levels and maybe just keep what it is that you need without buying too much stock as well. But I think we've also seen that there's some assistance programs, whether by government, whether by banks. I think it's important to understand these and to take advantage of any sort of assistance that you can get, whether it's loans, whether it's government relief, whether it's being asked not to pay your rent for 3 months. I think you can just take the relief that you can, but making sure as well you're planning ahead. But also to constantly review your performance. I think it's more important now for organizations to be constantly reviewing performance. So that's when your financial reports really play a role. Be looking at this constantly so that you can adjust. I think key right now is the ability to adjust and be flexible and change direction quickly. And all type of organizations, I'm sure, need this. So I think that's just some of the stuff I think we need to be doing in this current crisis as organizations in order to survive, but also to look out for opportunities to thrive as well. I think that's key.
Awesome. Quite a mouthful there. Thank you so much for that. Those are very practical things. For example, where you are mentioning that if you are owing somebody, you can go and negotiate to say, kindly, let's review so that I can try and pay later so that you have a bit of relief. And then if somebody is owing you, try and see whether they can, pay earlier if it is possible, because that can also bring a relief. Thank you so much for that. The next one will be advice for starting and running a successful NGO. I know that quite a number of my mentees, and myself included, are very passionate about helping people, touching lives. And each time I see you posting on LinkedIn, talking about the work that you do and how you change lives, I'm telling you, that's the, do you know, I only knew recently, Mr. Midzi, that you are, into financial management and stuff like that. For me, in my mind, you have always stuck as that man who is involved with NGOs, that man who cares about other people. That's so fascinating. So, and I'm so glad that you are also involved as a, managing consultant who does financial management. So we can learn a lot from you. What does it take for someone to start an NGO?
All right. And I think the first thing is really around that passion for it. You find, as you said, many people have the intention to start an NGO. Many actually begin the process, but a lot of people then discover it's a lot more hard work than it might look like. There's a perception, I think, sometimes that NGOs are a cash cow that people can just start to get money. But when you get into it, you then realize that it's much more than just about the money. And what's key there is then your passion, and to make sure you select a cause and a mission that will keep you going even during times when you sometimes wonder why you started doing what it is you're doing. So it's it's important to be clear on who you want to help and why you want to help them, and also to come up with strategies on how you're going to help them. So I think it's key before you even begin to get that in order. Another important thing is that you then just need to see who are you helping. And when you're starting an NGO, it's key to involve them. You need to be able to make sure that you're meeting the needs of your communities or your beneficiaries, because it's very easy sometimes to sit at home and think up this wonderful idea of how you're going to help these people, go out there and discover that they don't really need that. They had other needs that they found to be more pressing. So it's important to, I think, get them involved at the onset when you're planning. Even as you do your activities, make sure you're involving your communities. The thing of setting up is key as well. So you need to then just make sure you get a good start. You need to make sure that your registration documents are in order. So how are you going to register? Are you just operating as a trust in Zimbabwe? Are you going to be a PVO in other countries? What sort of registration is required? Get those in place. And for me, it's about, I think, formalizing your operations as soon as you can, because as NGOs, you find that the moment you start looking for funding from other organizations, that's what they're going to be looking at. Just your systems, your registration, how is that all in order? So it's important, I think, to get it going straight from the beginning. In terms of setting direction and strategic planning, it's important then in terms of the board, who is on your board? So I think it's a key that you get advisors that are able to help you as an organization see where you want to be in 10 years' time and help you follow that path as well. So key is who then do you get on your board? Important, I think, to as much as possible to avoid then just getting your friends on board, but getting all the skills that you'll need in that cause or area that you want to work on. But also your team is important. Who then do you work with? Because you're not going to be able to do this alone. So it then becomes key to make sure then that you put together a professional team, right people in the right place to deliver what it is that you need as an organization. Then you need to look at networking. So you know what you want to do. It's important to know. So for example, we are working in Chivi. For a long time, we were just working blindly. We knew what we wanted to do, we'd go and do it. But now we're seeing the importance of knowing who else is working in your space, in your area you're working in, who else is doing the same things you're doing, and then how can you collaborate with them? But also just to know it as well in terms of the funding partners, who is funding what it is that you want to do, or what are your other sources of funding that you can get as well. For me, then finance then becomes key, because a lot of organizations will focus on the work they want to do with the communities, but not on things like finance and HR and the operational stuff, which is key in order for the organization to succeed. So put as much emphasis on setting up your operations and your finances in order as you're doing on the actual work you're doing in the communities. And maybe not to overstretch. You might find there's so much you want to do, but you're not going to be able to do it all. So for me, it's better to start slowly and expand if you need to, but also focus on that cause and mission that you want to do so that you don't get sidetracked as you go along. And maybe just innovation. What makes you different? Because there's so many NGOs out there as well. What is it that will make your organization unique and different and stand out and be one that makes that impact in the community you're working in?
Wow.
I talk too much, Doc. You must just stop me sometimes.
You are not talking too much. You are not talking too much. I'm taking notes. You know what? Before we started this live with you, I was doing a live where I was talking about the importance of marketing. If people want to make money, the importance of effective marketing. And one of the things that I mentioned was Peter Drucker says, for you to succeed in business, you need marketing and innovation. And I hear you continuously mentioning innovation. And then you are talking about NGOs, and one of the major things that you are bringing up is that somebody actually needs to go out there and talk to the people that they want to help, involve them. That is marketing. Yes. Because when you are running, so what I'm seeing from what you are saying, sir, is that many people have an idea of what they want to do in terms of touching lives. So for example, you say, I'm gonna run orphanages. Or maybe you say, I'm gonna, rescue school children who don't have uniforms and blah, 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 blah. Another one will say, I want to help senior citizens, to give them blankets and food and all that. And all that preoccupies your mind. You are seeing that sweet picture. Oh, I see the senior citizens smiling as they receive the food and all that. But what we fail to realize is that when you are running that NGO, it's almost like you are running a business, but it's not for profit. You still need to follow the principles of business. Otherwise, you will be frustrated and you will fail. I know some people will say, I'm going to run an NGO because they are just thinking, look, companies will come running to donate. So money will be coming in, then I can take my salary and be able to help my family. Meanwhile, I will also help the people that I want to help. Meanwhile, we are not thinking of it from a business perspective where you, like you are saying, when I was talking about marketing earlier in a different live video where I was speaking about marketing, I was telling people that marketing does not begin when you are advertising. Marketing begins when you do a customer needs assessment. Marketing begins when you do a market survey. You want to know what people need. Then you go and come up with whatever they need, and then you communicate to them. So
true. Very true.
At the end of the day, I don't know what's happening, Mr. Midzi. Sorry. We seem to have people who are trying to join us, but they are struggling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I hope they will be able to join us. Right. So basically what I'm saying is, marketing begins with you finding out the needs of the people. What problems do they have? What gaps are there in the market? And then when you have found out that, you now come up with what can solve the problem, what can fill in the gap. But that's not what most people do. Every place I've ever spoken, I ask people, how many of you love research? You might find 1 out of 100. Many people don't like research. But then you are talking about NGOs, Mr. Midzi, and you are also saying we must involve the people that we are helping. That's research.
Yes.
That's a needs assessment. It's amazing. And I remember we were talking with a certain lady some years back, and she was very frustrated. She had come to me for financial coaching, personal financial coaching. She says, you know what? I don't know what to do anymore. I'm trying to help my siblings, I help my parents, I help everybody, and people are not happy. As we started talking, she actually realized that every year she buys clothes, she buys shoes for her cousins, for everybody. When she takes those things to them, they are not happy, they are not excited. And she is wondering, these people are not grateful. What's wrong with them? Only to realize that she is busy buying shoes for somebody who doesn't need shoes. The person you are buying shoes for, actually, they don't have any trousers anymore. They have enough shoes. You are bringing shoes. So, hey, I hope that anybody who wants to start an NGO will understand what you are saying, involve the people that you want. Otherwise, it's not help. If I come to you, Mr. Midzi, and I bless you with something that you already have, you will say, oh, thank you, my brother, for thinking of me. But it's not a big deal. You don't have to be excited because you have many of those things. But if I know what you need, if I do some research from your daughters or from your friends, and they tell me, you know what, Midzi has been dreaming about this particular car, about this particular chair, about this particular shirt, and I go and I buy that thing on your birthday and I give it to you, man, it doesn't matter how much it costs, it will excite you because it's relevant. So I think it's time, from what you're saying, we need to be relevant as business people. We need to be relevant even as NGOs. And then you have mentioned also another thing to say the finances must be intact. I normally tell people, my family and I donate a lot to orphanages, to senior citizens and so on. But each time we donate to orphanages, we want to be sure that our money is being used properly, because people are people. So there must be accountability. If I'm donating money, do you give me a receipt? I remember the other time I visited Kenya, I had gone to speak at a business conference. So when I got there, one of the main place I went to was to look for an orphanage. I said, I can't leave Kenya without having visited an orphanage to donate. So I looked for a cab, we went around, got to this particular orphanage, which I had never heard about. And the guy says, yeah, this is the place. I say, no, this is not the place. This name, I've never heard about it. He says, no, but we can just get inside. We went inside. I sort of interviewed them without them knowing. And I realized that, they had their accountability. I was glad. We went around and we donated. Even the driver also donated in tears. He says, I can't believe that a man will come from Southern Africa for a conference, and then he's looking to donate to children. And I'm here in my own city, Nairobi, in my own city. I'm here in Nairobi and I have never thought of donating. He was crying. So what I'm just saying is, even as you run your NGO, be accountable, be transparent. Nobody wants to throw away their money on you. So keep your finances, keep your records, and be transparent. Oh, I like the fact that you talked about building a team. That's business mentality. You can't build a company without a team. So the same with NGO. I never thought of that, for the NGO. For us, we are just thinking, ooh, I want to help people. Please feel free to go ahead. I hope I'm not talking.
No, that's fine. I think you're emphasizing key aspects there that are important for any NGO, whether it's a new one or an existing one, and that's critical. I think the issue of accountability that you mentioned is really key. And you sometimes see organizations with great programs suffering just because they fail to then account for the work they're doing and the monies they're receiving.
Yeah. When COVID-19 started, my brother, I don't run an NGO per se. But when COVID-19 striked, hey, English. when it struck. Thank you. When COVID-19 struck. Right? So people started approaching me and my wife. We are hungry. Can you share food with us? We are hungry. Can you help us? We started taking from part of our food to share with some of those families. And then I spoke with some churchmates to say, guys, this is the situation. How can we help? Mm-hmm. And some of my churchmates decided to join my wife and I to donate. And when they did that, They said, Dr. Mutoko, we trust you. You don't need to tell us how the money has been used. I said, never. It can't happen. Transparency is very important. They say, no, but we know that you are going to donate because some of them are not in Botswana. So they just send the money. And I say, we already know you are honest and you have already been helping. I said, I want transparency. I will buy the food. I will send you the receipts. I will send you the photos of the foods that we have bought. I will avoid shooting videos of the people that we are donating to avoid humiliating them. We are not trying to make a show to show everybody that we are donating. And they said, yeah, perfectly fine. Even if you don't show us receipts, I say, I'm sending you receipts. You send me the money, I will send you the receipts. I want to be accountable because I don't want tomorrow someone to wake up thinking, this man's, what do you call it? The cheeks are growing fat. Is he not chowing my money? So please, when you are working with people, be accountable. Anyway, would you like to share with us your experience with the Tugwi?
Okay, so I think you said when you noticed me on LinkedIn, you maybe thought I was more into Tugwi than the consultancy.
Yes.
And sometimes that's how I feel. I think Tugwi was a later passion that came out, and right now I'm finding more satisfaction out of doing Tugwi than the consulting. But they both run parallel. But it's amazing. I think the satisfaction that you get. I think sometimes we underestimate the impact that a little will do. So what you might think is a little, to someone else, it will make the world of a difference. So one thing that I really liked with doing the Tugwi work is just seeing the children and how excited they get, whether it's a pair of shoes, whether it's a book, whether it's knowing the fees are paid for the term. It's amazing how these children then just get excited about it all. So for me, I've enjoyed the experience. We took Tugwi over in 2005. We were not doing much with it for maybe the first 5 years and yeah, maybe 5-7 years. But of late, we've really been doing a lot of work with Tugwi. And for me, what's been amazing as well, you mentioned your driver in Kenya. My initial expectation, because our main program is really the Sponsor a Child program, where we're paying fees, was that I thought that most of our funders would be externals. So what's amazing me, for example, and getting me really excited is just how many Zimbabweans are feeding into the program. So I'm finding that 90% of our sponsors actually Zimbabweans, and the majority of that are Zimbabweans in Zimbabwe. So initially when we're doing our forecasting, that was not something we expected. So I'm really excited in that we're seeming to create a platform where we can get locals involved. You know, we have perceptions you come with, and I think we often hear about how in Africa, because of extended family expectations, people will not sponsor a child outside their family. But I'm just amazed at how many people are able to then come on board and sponsor us. But it's also demanding work. I think what I'm finding with Tugwi is that it needs a lot of work. There's no going in halfway. I think when you take a commitment of this size, you end up having to give it your all. And as you said, accountability is key. You're being a steward and handling people's money. It's important for me as well, I think, to be as transparent and accountable as possible. And the challenges of small NGOs like Tugwi is that sometimes you do not have the manpower to be able to enable you to do that effectively. So you're having to look for ways and means to be able to then account. On LinkedIn, there's so much support. So people will come on board and message me. And like you said, right now we're feeding students and families under COVID. People are sending money. They'll just send money and say, that's fine, go and help however many people you want to help. But I think a key thing for us at Tugwi is then being accountable, not only for the people that give us money, but for ourselves as well. That satisfaction that you know that you've received money from someone and you've used it in the manner you said you'd use it and as effectively as you wanted to use it, I think for me is key. As I think too, we're starting to grow. We're starting to feel the pressures of growing. A lot of the work we've been doing has been from the sponsors and a lot of unrestricted income. So the consultancy we run has been really feeding a lot of the operational costs of Tugwi. We've only started now looking at getting donor funding. And that also, I think, for me, is the next challenge for us, because you then discover that all of a sudden, you know, it's not really up to you. You don't have the freedom you might think you want. If you're taking on someone's money, they also want to have a say in your agenda, and the autonomy is a little less. So you need to weigh the pros and cons. You need to see who you partner with. Do you have the same vision, the same dreams, so that you get into bed with people that you're happy with. I think a lot of NGOs are pressurized to take money and conditions that they're not too happy with. I'm still at a stage where I think I'm still able to negotiate with partners before they come on board. So we're both satisfied with what we're doing. But it's truly amazing and satisfying work. And we just want to expand the work we're doing. At the moment, we're restricting ourselves to Chivi, and that's another pressure you will get. People will want to know, why Chivi? Why aren't you in Hwange or Mutare or Kariba? And as much as you might want to do the whole country and even go regional, you need to know your capacity as well, I think. So one thing I'm realizing is the need to focus. So we're trying as much as possible to focus on what our resources will enable us to do, so that we have a bigger impact. But the dream is there to grow this and to be helping children throughout the country. Yeah. So exciting stuff happening at Tugwi, and yeah, I wake up and dream about all the different things we can do. But also the team is key. So the team that I have around me, the board that we have, I think everyone is just so amazing, and we're doing great work, I think, because of that team that we have, and also their passion in doing what we're doing as Tugwi.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm really, really enjoying this. Thank you so much, Palma, Mr. Midzi. One of the people who are with us today live here is called Palma. And Palma says, thank you for not taking pics when donating. Most people donate for show off, really. Thank you so much for that comment. So I'm not sure whether there is that possibility of some people, you know, just shooting photos with the people's agreement and understanding, or maybe shooting videos. But like Palma is saying, it looks like for majority of people, when they take photos or videos, it's not necessarily to encourage others to say, this is what we have done, and these are the results it's bringing, see the joy on the face of so and so. But it can actually just be a way of showing others that this is what we are doing. And I think it comes back to what you are saying, Mr. Midzi, to say the passion and the fulfillment that you get to say, you know what, I must be accountable. I'm a steward. I must be accountable for my sake. Not necessarily because I'm afraid of the police or being investigated, or that people will start talking, but in your heart, there's fulfillment you get, which is more than money when you do the right thing. So there's something very interesting you said there, Mr. Midzi. You said Zimbabweans in Zimbabwe are the majority of the people that have been giving. And I'm wondering, for example, some of us, we stay here in Botswana. I'm wondering whether, let's say somebody in Botswana is thinking of setting up an NGO. Are they thinking of themselves first, finding a way of funding their dream, and then having friends and family and people in Botswana funding it? The same applies to those in Zimbabwe. If they are starting, or maybe they are in South Africa, you are starting that NGO. You are in Zambia, Malawi, Mozambique, wherever you are. Are you thinking of ideas of how you personally will fund your idea? It cannot start, you can't start by asking somebody else to fund without you doing anything. That's my thinking. I might be wrong. Mr. Midzi, you will help me on that. But I'm also seeing, even from you, Mr. Midzi, you are running a consultancy firm. Now you, I know you are passionate about it, but your passion for helping people, it causes you to run Tugwi. But you are not throwing away the consultancy aspect. It's actually helping you, regardless of the fact that you may not be as excited, but you still do it because it's a springboard that helps you to fund. So even if other people do not fund, you will still be able to do something and reach your dream. So I think what people need to learn is to avoid, let's say maybe you are done with school and you say, you know what, me, I just love NGO work. Truly, you love NGO work. But there's no harm in you possibly getting a job somewhere or selling something, maybe not too exciting for you, but so that at least you start somewhere and you are able to start helping one person at a time. When people see you passionate about doing something, then they will join you in. I was talking of my church members joining me, to donate during COVID-19. They saw me doing something. They heard me testifying at church to say, oh, somebody reached out to me. I didn't even know this person. They say, my family is dying of hunger. Do you have something? People I've never spoken with. Some people knocking at the gates. Sometimes you wonder, is this for real? Is it like they are dying of hunger or they are just taking advantage of people? But then you say to yourself, who in their right senses would like to stoop so low and go knocking on doors of somebody they don't even know and say, I'm dying of hunger? It should be sort of, depressing for someone to do that. So we got excited with my wife and say, okay, we are privileged to be able to share. It's not as if we have a lot, but the little we have, we can share. So when church members heard that and they saw that we were doing something, they were willing also to put their hands into it. So I think some people will not achieve their dream of NGO because rightfully they desire to serve people. But the problem is they are just waiting for someone to come from somewhere, even outside the country. You are imagining somebody seated in Greece or America or somewhere coming to help you. Unfortunately, there are many people who have gone ahead of you and me, who have been cheating donors. So people will not believe you so easily. I mean, even when you look at banks, when they give loans, when they are giving you a mortgage, it's very rare for them to give you 100%. They can tell you, we are giving you 90%, put 10%. I don't have 10%. They say, we can't give you 90%. In other words, they are saying, how committed are you? If you are not willing to put your own money on the block, why should we put our money on the block? When somebody comes to me and they say, I need a loan to start a business, I want to know how much they are putting in. If they are putting 0 and I'm putting everything, I need to think very carefully. This person must be willing to sacrifice something towards their dream, and then I will come in and help them. Maybe I'm wrong, but Mr. Midzi, you will come in and comment on that. And of course,
I think you're... Oh, sorry. I was going to say, no, I think you're very right. So a lot of times you get people who see the work we do and then they want to partner up and then they realize that maybe there's no profit being made. So, people will ask, so what's in it for you? So I always say, when you start these things, expect to be putting in more than you're receiving from anywhere else. So you must expect that you're going to have to fund a lot of the stuff, especially initially when you're starting off. Otherwise, your dream will not even kick off. And as you rightly say, then people will see what you're doing and also buy into the idea and come. But be prepared particularly when you're starting, to be putting in some of the capital. Just as you would in business, I think in NGOs, it's still the same. And for us, we find that the consultancy side can really then also sustain Tugwi in times when maybe we're not getting funding from other people. So for example, we sponsor children. So someone might genuinely want to sponsor a child for all of their time at school, but there will come a time when, because right now, if we look at the current crisis, a lot of sponsors are not able to continue. So you then wonder what happens to our children that we're sponsoring. So that's when maybe we then use what the consultancy has to then support the gaps that we have. So I think it's key, and it's something you must expect as someone starting such an organization, that you will be called upon to dig into your own pockets.
Yes, thank you so much for that. So we must be willing to start somewhere. And I like the fact that you are saying you are concentrating on Chivi area. It's something I never thought of. You know, sometimes when you have a heart to do something, you're just thinking of, you see, like you and me, we are thinking of Africa, and you're just thinking of, you know, seeing the whole of Africa changing, and it doesn't just happen like that. It's not magic. Start with where you are. I have a passion to see the sick healed. I have a passion to see prisoners freed. Guess what? Over the years, I have gone to as many prisons in Botswana as possible to motivate the prisoners, to preach the gospel to them. I've gone to the hospitals to pray with the sick and to encourage them. I've gone to orphans, I've assisted widows, not because I have. Even when we didn't have anything, we would still share. So for you to say, hey, I just love this kind of, you know, NGO, I'm going to register my NGO, but you are not doing anything. That little you have you ever shared it? I heard of a lady who was going on the streets distributing food to the homeless. She started off with very little food. From her home, she will prepare food. When she's preparing food, she prepares more than her family can eat. Then she takes a few boxes, she takes to the homeless. So much fulfillment as she's doing that. It doesn't matter what food it is. As long as you are eating it, it's palatable, then somebody on the street might find it also helpful. And then people begin to see, what does this woman have? And people now start helping because you are doing something. There was this other nurse also who started off, sometimes even before you register. Because now when you register, you need a lot of things. You need the board, you need that, you need that. If it is your passion, this particular nurse was going around helping the homeless people, educating them about safe sex, you know, trying to help them, those who had headaches and things like that, giving them tablets and so on. She was not paid by anybody to do that, but from her heart. Now, when people begin to see you taking action, they now say, oh, is there a way we can help you? Is there a way we can give you a vehicle? Is there a way we can register this thing? And before you know it, your dream is booming. But we have to learn to start from somewhere. And then you talked about partnering. So I think that's a very important one. If you are not careful, that dream you have, that passion you have, can actually be negatively driven. Because somebody else will come, not necessarily because they are wicked, but they might have a different vision from yours. Now, because they are putting their money into it, they will hijack your vision. Not necessarily hijack. Maybe hijack is too strong, but you might find that you no longer.
In some instances, hijack. In some instances, it's not too strong. But yeah.
Also, in some instances, hijack, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we need to be careful whom we partner with as we do NGOs. The same way that we need to be careful whom we partner with running our SMME.
Yes.
So there's a lot we can learn from business principles. So what would you say are the main challenges of running NGOs? I know you might have already touched on some of the things.
Yes, I think I've touched on them. So things like, I think I mentioned governance, poor governance, with things like skills shortages as well. One major challenge, I think, for our NGOs is, when you work in a community, you hope that you're not there forever. And you want to be able to leave the community to be able to carry on with whatever interventions you would have started. So I think a lot of times, and a big challenge is the sustainability of the programming work that NGOs are doing. And you find that people come in, do work, the moment the funder leaves, it's back to where they were before. If I look at Chivi, for example, Chivi has been receiving food aid since the 1980s when we got independent. But if you really look at it, it's continuously people coming to distribute foods, to give clothes. So the challenge for us right now is how can we then make sure that the people of Chivi themselves are able to sustain these programs after the interventions. So a key thing is to focus, I think, on things like software approach, where you're then looking at empowering them. How can we empower them to be able to run their own programs? How can we get rid of this victim mentality where people are just wanting to receive and not putting any effort themselves? So for us, it's about empowering people to own these projects that are taking part in their community. It's not a donor thing. We try and make them realize it is theirs and they should be able to take it over and be able to run them. So we're really looking at ways of how to train them, what tools they need to be able to do it, so that if Tugwi pulls out, then the people we're working with can still continue. The issue of sustainability, not only for the project, but I think for the organization is key. So I think we are seeing situations where NGOs come and go. 2-3 years, you see an NGO, then it disappears. So I think it's important to start thinking longer term as NGOs. How are we going to ensure that we're here in 10 years' time? And a lot of the things we've been talking about, that partnership, having strategies in place, but also having succession planning. We know founder syndrome is a huge thing to deal with. As a founder, what is it that you can put in place to make sure that the organization can continue without you? We need diversified funding base. So we need to be looking at where is your money coming from? Can we avoid one source? Can we have different sources? Can you also have your own income that you're raising? And that will then also assist in that challenge of sustainability. Specifically funding, generally, I think it's maybe, if you look at the biggest challenge, it's just getting funding for NGOs. And what's key there as well, some of the solutions are just maybe looking for opportunities. You need to invest time in looking for opportunities. You also need to invest time in training your staff how to write proposals and funding documents. If in-house you don't have the capacity, there are resources externally, I think, that people are able to use. So it's important to be able to then put forward your best possible proposals for funding so that you're then attracting the donors that you want. But there's an investment that comes with that, whether it's training staff, whether it's getting outside assistance, but it's not just going to happen out of nowhere. And looking more specifically at finances, a key challenge is meeting your operational expenses. So you find many donors want to help you with the work you're doing out in the field, but no one wants to pay your rent or your internet. No one wants to pay your accountant in the office, or few want to contribute to the director's salary unless they're involved in the projects as well. So as an organization, you need to then strategize. How are you going to make sure your running costs are met? And one, simple thing is just talking about them. So you find, because many NGOs know that funders don't want to fund them, they go into negotiations already assuming they're not going to get that expense met. I think it is key from the moment you start negotiating with any donor to bring in the aspect of these admin and operational expenses, and then to make sure that they are covered whatever budget you prepare for proposals. But also donors want to know, how are you going to meet these expenses through your different funding sources? So it's also fair for you to be able to clearly state how you meet your common costs that everyone has to pay into, because no donor wants to know that, one, either they're the only ones funding this cost, or two, that you're claiming the same rent from 5 different funders. So you clearly need to have a cost sharing policy in place which states how you're going to be sharing your operational expenses. And once you're like that, it's easier for you to then negotiate for these costs that normally would not be met. And I think those are some of the challenges I'm sure that we come across.
Wow. The things you're saying are amazing. I should say, personally, my eyes are opened. As some of my Nigerian mentors will say, my eyes are opened. Okay. So running an NGO is not just a passion. You need to put things in place. You are talking about sustainability, which also touches on SMMEs. Most of the SMMEs, when the founder dies, it's over. We have seen, for example, bus operators, some of the most well-known bus operators in Zimbabwe, when the owner passed on, everything crumbled. Even if you divide the buses among the wives and, you know, the children and all, that's the end of it. Sustainability planning. Sometimes we think about that when it comes to business, but we don't think about it when it comes to NGOs. A church is also an NGO, isn't it?
Yes,
but we see that many churches, when the founder goes, it's over. Which means if Jesus had done the same thing, we would not have known God. We would still be worshiping our ancestors who passed on with their own weaknesses and suffering. Now, after they die, we start asking them for help, and it doesn't make sense at all. But Jesus was able to train his disciples and see how far it has gone, and it is still breaking forth on every side. Training is very important. If Jesus, the Son of God, took training seriously, he could have just prayed for them. He could have just prayed, Lord, this thing shall continue forever. Done. But he took time to train his disciples. You are running that business. Do you train your staff? You are running the NGO. Do you train your staff? Right now with the COVID-19 issues, people need retraining. There are some changes to be made because life is not the same again. How many of us are retraining our teams? How many of us are looking for online facilitators, like some of us, to assist people who can help you to be able to run your business online, to run that NGO online? As much as you still need to go out there and help people, but you need to be able to communicate with people online. Times are changing and we need to move with the times. I think you said something very important there. And you speak about the costs. Some of us are just excited. If I can register an NGO, ooh, you know. But I'm actually learning that, yeah, it's not just, I thought running an NGO is easier, honestly. But I'm realizing that probably more difficult than running a business because when you are running a business, Mr. Midzi, you have employees who have signed a contract and you have agreed they must work. If they work, you pay. If they don't work, you don't pay them. But with most NGOs, you are going to have a number of volunteers, including yourself. And I think the greatest test of leadership is when you lead volunteers. Because they follow you because they want to. They don't follow you because they are afraid to lose their jobs. And like you were saying, it can get to a level now where you actually need to pay some people. And honestly, right now, the people who send money or food or whatever for the children to Tugwi, honestly, how many of them are thinking part of the money I'm sending can actually be used to pay rent, and some of it, let it be used to pay accountant, some of it, let it be. No, what are you talking about? I'm sending you that money, make sure it goes to the children. But wait a minute, how does it go to the children? We throw it in the air and it arrives at the children. On top of that, you want accountability. So I think, Mr. Midzi, you are also educating us as donors, not just as people who donate. I mean, not just as people who are passionate to run NGOs, but also as donors. Anybody listening to this, you are also learning, I hope, to say when we are donating, let's also not just think of saying, for example, somebody will say, we are sending these pads for the girls. Every month we send you this month. We want to make sure these pads are used by those girls, okay? Thank you for that. But we also have 5 ladies that are volunteering who take the pads to the girls. Is it a big issue? If these women who are volunteering to take the pads that you are sending, if we take some pads from there and give to these women, you know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing that even donors need education. Because
no, they do indeed.
when we think of donating, we are not thinking of the money being used for anything else. Just take it to what we are sending it for. But then, look, there is also fuel. Who is putting fuel for the things you have sent? Obviously, as an NGO, you are not going to be questioning people, but I think it's something that we need to learn as donors to say, as we are partnering with someone, you say to someone, in fact, it's a privilege that probably I am not in Chile and I've never been in Chile, but I'm interested in helping the work that Mr. Midzi and his team are doing in Chile. It will be nice for me to understand the logistics. What else, apart from me just sending the money and demanding that I want it used this way, what are some of the challenges that you are facing? What else needs money so that I can be able to assist there? I think that's very, very, very helpful. And
yeah,
I'm really
very true, very true. Yeah, so education is needed on both sides, I think.
Yes.
Because, yeah, a lot of funders will expect you to deliver and monitor and you know, be accountable, but not be able to, or not be willing to sponsor that. But as an NGO, be able to articulate that aspect of the work that you do. So a lot of NGOs will not do so because they're scared of losing the money. So they'll take the money just for the programs and then see what to do later on. I think it's important. One of our clients, I think they were actually in Zambia. The first thing, the moment it was a diocese, the moment you step into this diocese, the bishop is already talking about overhead costs. And whether we went there as consultants, as auditors, he will make sure everybody hears about overhead costs. And amazingly, all his funders would be paying these costs. You'd say minimum 10% must go towards overheads. Otherwise, we're not taking up your funding. And I think you need to empower yourselves as NGOs to be able to negotiate, you know, maybe not dictate like that all the time, but to be able to negotiate so that it's a win-win situation and you're not putting yourself under too much pressure.
I'm learning. My brother, I'm not sure whether you really understand when I say I'm learning, because usually when somebody interviews, they sort of pretend that, woo, even when it's not. But I have to be honest with you, I'm learning a lot from this. And I hope that everybody will learn also. So probably this will be the last thing from my side, and you will be free to recap. In the meantime, for Palma and the other person, Galaxy A10, feel free to send in your chats if you have questions for Mr. Midzi concerning SMME financial management or NGO financial management. Mr. Midzi, are there some systems that NGOs can put in place? Whether you can correct me, churches are also NGOs, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. Yes, we have a lot of churches that are helping out in that sector. So you'll find that funding partners and implementing partners, there are a lot of faith-based organizations that are doing it. And you find many of our churches have an arm that then helps the community. So yes, they are involved in that work.
So what systems should be put in place to make sure that, probably we've already touched on some of the things, but just feel free.
Yeah, I think it's just, yeah, I think for me, it's key, and I'm mainly from the operational side. So I think it's key to have governance systems that are in place that you then follow, but also take them seriously, because I think a major issue is that you find that many NGOs have boards that are just boards in name. So the executive director will just pick a couple of his friends to then sit on the board, and then they don't do the work of a board. So I think it's important to have an effective governance system, one that you know you can rely on for oversight and also for strategy development as well. So you're making full use of that. In terms of the accounting. So just make sure you have and it's basic systems that you need. What you just need is a system that will enable you to track, and this works even for the SMEs as well. Track your money is coming in, track what you spend it on, be able to account and support your expenditures, have in place authorization systems so you're not just, money is not just coming out, it only goes out after someone has approved it, but also your reporting systems need to be there. So make sure you have in place systems where you can report internally very frequently, and then to your funding partners and other stakeholders when you need them. So you don't want to then get surprised at the end of the year when you then prepare annual financial statements to then see some expenses or some expenditures you could have done without. But also for NGOs, the key thing is to be able to spend. So you will find a major issue with some NGOs is the inability to spend. So you also then need to be monitoring how much you're spending. Are you going to spend all your money before the grant runs out? And to avoid a situation where you keep money until the last 2 months of a grant and then spend in panic, because normally that's when you find lots of bad things. I've used the word bad things happening or shortcuts being taken. So it's key to have systems in place that are informing you as you implement, have review mechanisms in place. Also in programming as well, I mean, be monitoring and evaluating your work as you go so you can then adjust it as you go. So same as the SMMEs, like my mother and the peanut butter, know how well you're doing constantly. Have a system that will enable you to know, are you having to change your costs? Are you having to change your pricing? You'll find you'll be able to make decisions. Maybe the packaging you're using needs to change. Maybe where you're getting your nuts or your inputs needs to change. But that will happen if you have systems in place to be able to report. For the organizations, HR is also key. Put in place those systems that will enable you to look after your staff as well. Make sure your contracts are taken care of. All staffing needs are also addressed. But also there are now IT systems that help us to work more efficiently. So take a look at those and see how, as an NGO, as a small or medium enterprise, you can leverage on these to then improve your operations. I think it's key to be efficient so that you create more time for strategy development, for looking ahead, for reviewing as well. And if there's anything that can help you, whether it's an accounting system, whether it's a planning system, whether it's you mastering Excel and being able to use it as a good reporting tool, invest in that so that you're then able to use those systems to help your organization thrive and do well. Because I think it's really a competitive world now. You just need to be the best in whatever it is you're doing. And these systems should help in achieving
that. I'm so glad. You continue to repeat, you have to be the best at what you do. Do you think many people, when they are thinking of starting an NGO, they are thinking of being the best at what they do? Or it's just a heart to serve?
I think you start with the heart to serve, but yeah, it's key. You need to then realize it's just like you keep on saying, it's just like you're starting a company when you go into the NGOs. But also, it's also, and that's one of the things that made us start KFM Consultants as well. There'd be so many dreams that people would have, but because they're not doing them efficiently, instead of helping 20 children, inefficiencies lead to you only helping 5 or less children. So we also realize that by helping people to improve their operation, their system, they're then able to help more people. And that's, I think, one of the driving forces that made us start this company as well.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for everything you have shared. We have Palma saying, thank you for the presentation, Mr. Midzi. Do you have the M&E personnel for the Tugwi Trust, or you mainly rely on consultants?
So actually, you touched on it.
Actually, she had mentioned, hello, Mr. Midzi. Thank you for the presentation. Then she says, do you have the M&E personnel for the Tugwi Trust, or you mainly rely on consultants?
Okay, thanks, Palma, for that. So Yeah, you mentioned volunteers, Doc, and for Tugwi, that's been one of our driving forces. We work a lot with volunteers. We're all volunteers, actually. Maybe paid staff would be 2 out of 6 or so. So we rely on volunteers who then assist with the accounting, with the distributions, but also with the M&E. So it's then just, and a lot of them are actually off LinkedIn. So you get people who then just want to know about Tugwi, and then they ask, how can we assist? We've had someone come in and review our programs and give his version of how we could improve what we're doing. So that was a key aspect of M&E that is there. But a lot of it will be volunteers. We work a lot with students on attachment, so they're involved in that. And the consultants at KFM Consultants actually all end up doing Tugwi work as well. So we really all then just chip in. So we're not yet where we want to be. I think that staffing issue is also something that is challenging us. We want eventually the target for Tugwi that we've set for them is that they must have all the structures and positions filled that they need by the end of the year. So it's a challenge that I think the team is working with. But we also then make use of this volunteer system that really helps us a lot. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that question, Palmer, and thank you very much for that response, Mr. Midzi. I would like to thank everybody for coming through. This was such an inspiring and mind-awakening session, which I hope is going to help quite a lot of people out there. Thank you. We highly appreciate you, Mr. Midzi, for coming through.
Thank you, Dr. Mutoko. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And I've also been following the amazing work you're doing with leadership and change, and it's really great, the work you're doing. Hopefully we'll see you here in Zimbabwe doing some sessions for us soon.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Highly appreciate it. Mr. Midzi, so if people want to get hold of you, can you imagine I'm forgetting? How can I forget that? I know you are on LinkedIn, yes, but is there another way people can get hold of you? Somebody is going to watch this and they would want to take part in what you are doing.
So on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, but I can also share my contact details. I've got no problems with sharing those. Should I say them out or send them to you to share? My email address.
Yeah.
So my email address is Kudzai, KUDZAI @kfm.co.zw. So that can be used either for KFM Consultants or for Tugwi Trust as well. And my phone number, also my WhatsApp, +263 is our country code, and 772-216-842. So I'll also share that with Dr. Mutoko.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And
thank you. God bless you. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.